How hard did you push it till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
Welcome back, MuniciPals. This is Chris and Ashton. What's in the bag this week, Ashton?
Well, Big Chris, I think people will find out quickly. We're actually two very different golfers in this way. You are the embodiment of a tinkerer. I will let you talk more about that in a second. I am not, although I can tell you to kind of bury the lead. Spending time with Big Chris, I've done more tinkering than I usually do. A hybrid that I'll tell you about in a second, and a putter, which my buddy Nick, who hopefully will have on the podcast soon, I was telling him about the new putter purchase, which I'm going to make. And he said, why am I doing that? He said, you're putting better than I've ever seen you putt. I thought you loved your putter. And the answer was, I said, yeah, but Chris made a good point. Got a toe balance. I need a face balance. So Big Chris is kind of making me a bit of a tinkerer. But for me, I've got the Maverick driver. Love that thing. And Big Chris is also a big fan. Have a Titleist T2 3-wood or whatever last year's model was. But Big Chris actually was a big point, a big reason why I took that out of the bag. He pointed out that he had never seen me hit it, which was true. So what functions for my 3-wood is a Cleveland Highbore 2i hybrid, which I think if you ask any of my friends is my best and favorite club. I hit it about 230 yards every single time.
The Highbore technology is real.
The club's now 13 years old, and it's my favorite club in the bag. Then I have a Titleist 2 years ago, I think it was, Chris, the hybrid, the one you fit me for. That's also a 2i, but I hit it 215, not 230. And I literally went to Chris and I said, dude, I'm not good enough to have a 4-iron in the bag. I want a club that goes to 15. So Big Chris, big shout out to Big Chris and Golf Mart Dublin, the unofficial sponsor of this podcast, for getting me dialed into a club that I think has become my new dependable club. And just 2 weeks ago when I played, we played Valley of the Moon, tiny little postage stamp green number. I don't remember, front 9, I think, 215 yards. I hit it hole high about 10 feet. So Big Chris, that's a big kudos to you. Then I have the Mizuno irons. I should know which ones do I have, Chris?
So you have the Hot Metal Forged JPX 919s. Yeah.
This is the embodiment of us doing it live. So I have that 5-3 pitching wedge, and then I have tailor-made wedges in black, which once again, I think Big Chris has performed quite a bit of surgery on. I think that on average he bent my wedges about 3 degrees a piece. But Chris, you can add some context there, because the other reason we did that, because one thing we both figured out through both having these TaylorMades is they're great, but they absolutely rip the cover off the ball from the spin rate. So my wedges weren't going anywhere, and Chris had to bend them to make them do what they want to do. So it's a lot of me talking, Chris, but hey, you asked what's in the bag, and that's what's in the bag.
So as he referred to, for a profession, I build golf clubs for a living, and fit as well. But I more take care of the shop, repairing clubs, building clubs, creating it. Golf Mart Dublin, there we go. Creating anybody's desire of what they would like in their golf club set. So for me, I'm always tinkering. So if we do more what's in the bags, you're going to hear a lot of probably different variants in what I carry. But right now, what I've got dialed in, and it'll actually change next week because I'm building another iron set this week. So
yep.
That's constantly what's happening. But right now we've got the Callaway Maverick driver, which has been very constant. Actually, that's probably been the most constant thing in my bag.
I've never seen you hit another driver, which knowing Chris for 5 months, having a club in the flag for 5 months. I mean, it was a big deal when you had a putter 3 rounds in a row. So seeing that Maverick's the only thing I've ever seen you have.
Yeah. So the Maverick, it's a beast. I'll give Callaway credit. They killed it with that model. But I've changed the shaft up in it to get a little bit lower ball flight. So I'm now doing the Hazardous RDX shaft, which is new for this year. And I'm liking the way that's performing. An old trusty just came back into the bag, a TaylorMade M3 3-wood with a UST Pro Force V2 shaft in that guy. And then Cobra blessed me a while back with a Tour Head 5-wood in their Speed Zone line, and then really hooked it up with an Oban purple shaft. And that's just, I call that
It
Kobe.
looks so dope, man.
It's
like
a sick,
out on the course, it gets eyeballs.
yeah, and so that's the club I call Kobe, because I can hit that 210 on the dot every single time. I'm a big boy, but I'm not a long ball hitter. So if I can hit my marks, that's what I'm looking for in my clubs. And then right now, iron-wise, MP20 HMBs with some Nippon 105 stiffs in there. We've got some Tour raw zip cores from Cleveland for the wedges, which they're getting a nice rusty patina on right now. And then a little bit of Putter Bros action going on. I'm also rocking the new White Hot OG 2-ball putter.
Mine's in the mail.
Yours in the mail. We had to order him a lefty because, of course, nobody ever carries a lefty in stock, so we always have to custom order him everything.
Yep.
So
it's special. I'm a little snowflake.
Just a little snowflake.
I'm not sure what that accent is, but that's we can have a new segment called The Little Snowflake. Ashton the Little Snowflake.
Ashton the Little Snowflake.
Oh God, that better not become a thing.
Oh man. So that was what's in the bag. So this week we're going to be talking about the courses and areas that we grew up. So a little bit of a topic that I wanted to start off with in our first couple podcasts, just because this is kind of where we came and fell in love with public golf. We talked a little bit about where we came from and what got us into golf, and especially public golf. But there's going to be more in depth of the areas and the courses that we grew up on. So, really, what's the most played track you had as a kid?
Most played track. So I mentioned it last time we talked. North Fulton Golf Course, which is on Chastain Park in the middle of Atlanta. Because as I mentioned, I think what the course that I probably played, like my first initial golf is Cusquilla up at Lake Oconee, which is about say probably an hour and 15 minutes east of Atlanta. I'll talk about that in a second. That's probably where my earliest memories of playing golf are, but North Fulton for sure, because North Fulton is where as I mentioned last week, middle school, I don't even remember the impetus. I remember that my friend, Pat O'Brien, who still lives in Atlanta, plays a bunch of golf, still plays a bunch of golf. Actually, a member at a private course in Atlanta that he's taken me to multiple times. Thank you, Pat. But basically, I forgot what it was, but he moved from Wisconsin to Atlanta. And somehow the summers between 6th and 7th grade, we played golf from sun up to sundown. I told you my dad's philosophy was, you're never going to have the nicest stuff, but like you're going to have stuff that fits you. And as much as you want to play, again, I think it was $345 for that pass. Something around there. I might have said a different number last week. He was super supportive, and I needed balls, whatever. The answer was yes. So that's my kind of formative memories of sun up to sundown. And I think that's where, what I feel so special about like COVID golf is just that it's the only time in my life as I've gotten older where golf has truly been what's more top of mind than everything else. Like it was that feeling of, we wrap up, like we're putting on the putting green, waiting for our parents to come pick us up, and it's dark. We can't even see. And we go home to one of our two houses. We're playing Tiger Woods all night, Super Tiger back in the day, mashing the black button on Xbox to get the, think about the fact that
oh my God, the amount of spin you could get back on the ball, and back in the day, like you could literally rip it back 30 feet off the green.
It was the white button to power up, and then it was the black button for the spin. And also too, I think at that point, like I just wasn't a very good golfer. Like I thought max spin was always good. Sometimes you hit it right at the hole and you suck it up. You suck it 40 yards off the front of the green. But so we go home and play that, and then wake up the next day and just do it again. So again, I'm going to make sure I don't do just these giant blocks of talking. But North Fulton to me, it's where I think that I had that first moment as a golfer where I tell people who are trying to play now, like you're going to suck and suck and suck again until you hit one shot that feels right, and then one shot becomes two, and two becomes five, and five becomes 10, right? But I think for me, that moment where golf really started to click, where I felt myself just throwing shit at the wall and having nothing stick, and then starting to play better, starting to like develop what, any sort of feel for a golf club in my hand. It's North Fulton, and it's a golf course that's still there. And honestly, it's a golf course that even when I never played there when I went back. And I lived in Atlanta for the last 18 months. So definitely a place, at some point we've talked about, I want to do a Southern golf trip with you, maybe go, like we talked about the Carolinas, but would love to take you to certain places like this where it's like, again, you're not going to walk off North Fulton and be like, you're probably going to be glad we played, but it's just a place for me that has so much sentimental value because there's certain holes I can tell you, like, man, looking back, there are some like literally unfair golf holes, like number 10 at North Fulton. Not a fair golf hole. But again, that's kind of the fun of it is like, no matter what kind of round you're having, it's like, man, you better buckle up and not just take good golf shots, but also just get really lucky. So North Fulton to me, most play track and kind of, again, where I sort of got my feel as a golfer, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, for like me, we talked about it in the last podcast. Prune Ridge was really the place where I learned how to play. I learned etiquette. I learned how to play with random strangers. There was a lot of great things that I got out of Prune Ridge, but I had a plethora of courses in the area that I grew up in, in the South Bay, that I got a privilege to play all the time. We had San Jose Muni, we had Rancho del Pueblo, which is this crazy cool executive course that's in downtown East San Jose. Not the nicest area. It's gated off because it's just it's in that kind of area. But it's just so cool. They've got 2 par 4s and the rest of them are all par 3s. Just really fun little track built out there by Robert Muir Graves. And you'll hear him all the time when I talk about Bay Area golf because Robert Muir Graves is I would say probably 30% of the courses built in the Bay Area were Robert Muir Graves tracks. And
Chris,
so
real quick, just to ask you, because this is also, I think, one thing that's going to be fun is like, even though, we play golf together, like I'm much more of an expert on, not even Southern golf, but just becoming different regions. Like who, and I'm not meant to put you on the spot, but like, can you tell me more about Robert Muir Graves? Because I've actually, very honestly, I've heard you guys say that name a lot. That doesn't mean anything to me. So like, do you know anything about him to share?
Yeah, so a little bit about Robert Muir Graves. He was kind of in the same category as Jack Fleming and, all those guys in the early time when, Cypress and Pebble and, all the big courses, all the San Francisco tracks like Harding and Lincoln and Sharp and all those guys were being built. He was one of the guys around that time that was also coming into it as being superintendents and, taking care of a lot of those courses. And then in the 50s and 60s, he kind of branched out and started just blossoming all the way through the 90s, designing courses throughout the entire Bay Area and Northern California landscape. So if you looked him up, it wouldn't even be an exaggeration if he's done, close to 80 courses over the time span of, 40 years. So, I mean, he was a huge pivotal person in golf architecture and public golf in general, because most of his courses were public tracks. A lot of them were executive courses. A lot of them were short courses. A lot of them were par 3 tracks. So it's really cool because he was, a guy that really brought public golf to the landscape of the Bay Area. So, I wouldn't say every track that he built was really, interesting and had great golf course architecture, but I really just love, the accessibility of a lot of his golf courses. So that's a little bit with Robert Muir Graves. And then, other tracks that I got to grow up on, there's also Clark Gleason, who was another architect that designed a lot of great tracks in the area, like Sunken Gardens and Deep Cliff were, a couple that I mentioned in the last pod that I also got to play. And then, you know, it was always a treat when my dad would ever bring us out to play Cinnabar Hills or Coyote Creek. And Cinnabar is an awesome, awesome track designed by a guy named John Horbottle III. And he's most known for the renovation he did on the Stanford golf course. And so he did the renovation Stanford golf course. So the track that Tiger played was his reno that he did while he was going to Stanford. So really, really cool to be able to just, you know, growing up when I was a kid, I didn't realize, you know, the people that designed these tracks that I got to play. I just thought it was so cool, the opportunities that I had throughout, you know, the entire Bay Area. And then junior year in high school, we moved to Roseville, California, which is just north of Sacramento. And we moved on to the 16th hole of a golf course called Wood Creek Oaks. And that's actually Robert Muir Graves track as well, which is, I followed Robert Muir Graves, you know, around, not on purpose, but, you know, he was just everywhere, you know, growing up. And then in the Roseville, Sacramento area, I mean, it was a plethora of tracks to play. And so growing up, there's a deal I was able to get for $145 a month. The city of Roseville owned Wood Creek Oaks and Diamond Oaks. And so I got to play unlimited golf as much as I wanted for $145 a month, which was, I basically worked just so I could have that membership while I was in high school. And then right around the corner from us, there was a course called Sierra Pines in Timber Creek. So it was 27-hole track designed by Billy Casper. It was in a 55 and older community. So it was surrounded by homes, but it was a really fun open track, especially for anybody that just likes to grip it and rip it. That was a fun track to grow up on. And then a true gem that was built kind of towards the end, you know, when I was 17, 18, it was built. It was supposed to be private. They couldn't get enough people to join, was a course called Morgan Creek. And that is designed by Robert Trent Jones' protege, Kyle Phillips. And so that course is just an incredible track that got built right in the wrong time. So it was built 2004, 2005 when the recession was in its height. And so I was shocked it even got finished because the housing development it was built on, they couldn't even finish building the homes because they couldn't sell them. So it was to this day, it's still really well maintained, really great track. But, you know, growing up in Northern California, I was just completely blessed. So a little bit long-winded there.
No, but that's what's so interesting. It's like, I mean, I won't get on a soapbox here. This will be a conversation over, I mean, this is, you know, through the podcast, but just Atlanta, I think when people think, and I'm not trying to be too reductionist here, but I think people think Georgia, they think Augusta, and they think that's kind of their association. Sure. The public golf scene in Atlanta is pretty bad. So I think what's really like, it's always so flabbergasting for me is like, it's hard to know. Like, I mean, maybe you've played more golf. I feel like we've both played a lot of golf. For me, though, a lot of my golf is like, I just don't have the plethora and knowledge that you do, simply mainly because, you know, a lot of the golf courses that are, you know, notable to people in the Atlanta area or greater Atlanta area are all private. And very honestly, a lot of the public golf courses, like there might be interesting tracks, but like normally like the maintenance is a big issue, you know? So I think it's always like so fun for me to hear about kind of you growing up, because even moving out here, I mean, you know, like, again, I keep talking about my buddy Nick, but you know, Nick plays the same golf course every weekend, largely because it's kind of the one place, like it's within 45 minutes. They're going to charge him $45. Pace of play is reasonable. And like, the point is like, because it checks off like most boxes, that's just where he goes, you know, where, I mean, I think that like, we probably have certain courses that we want to play more than others, but you know, there's times that you guys in the group will just like bring up a course. Like, I don't have no like Valley of the Moon? Like what? Like of what moon? What valley? Like what are we like? What is this?
The crazy thing is, I've grown up in the Bay Area and lived in Northern California 90% of my life, other than my time spent in Portland, and I still haven't played all the courses. There's still, I would say, I've probably played 60% of the courses, and that's like 120 courses in Northern California. It's unheard of the amount of it. We're really spoiled out here. I mean, that's the easiest way to say it. It's crazy how spoiled we are in the Bay Area. I mean, if you don't mind driving within a 2-hour radius, I would have to go through. I mean, this is how crazy I am about public golf. I actually have mapped out every single public golf course in the entire West Coast. It's nuts. I'm a crazy person. But just in the Bay Area alone, it's 220 plus. Not in the Bay Area, but within a greater, 2.5 hour, driving radius. It's about, a little over 200, 230 is the number. And that's just in Northern California. And, all these, golf trips that we have planned just Southern California to try out some of the courses there. It's unheard of the amount of great golf that we get to play here. But I mean, you growing up in Atlanta with the limited amount of courses that you got to play, I'm sure growing up with a dad like you guys had to have gone on some cool, like memorable golf experiences.
Not really. No.
Nothing?
No, not really. I mean, I think the big thing was I played golf and was pretty good at golf, but I wasn't curious about golf the way that I am now, and yeah, and my dad, I mean, this is not meant to be like a weird boomerang dunk on my dad, but and we could even have him on to talk about this, but him and his buddies have been going on interesting golf trips for 30 years. And he's been going, this will be a whole separate story. He's sort of been in the last 5, 6, 7 years, he's really lost his golf pump because he has the putting yips. So think about this. My dad is a 2.1 handicap with a case of putting yips. Think about that. Yeah. Right.
So what do you know the average of putts that he's having per round?
I don't, but I'll talk to him and he'll play.
Because I'd like to know his referral to a putting yip. If that's 33 putts, or if it's I'm 29 instead of 23, which would still be a killer round for most of us. I mean, I guess the way he phrases it to me is, I guess the other thing, caveat too, this always makes me sick. My dad will not play golf for 6 weeks. Won't practice, won't pick up a club, won't think about it. He'll get a text from one of the guys in his group who's like, Moss, I've got an open spot Friday, 11 a.m. Come out. He'll be like, I'm playing, Atlanta Country Club tomorrow, private. Great course, private. His buddy Brad. And he'll go, I'm playing Atlanta Country Club. Cool. Let me know how it goes. Call him. How'd it go? Played fine. What'd you shoot? 75. Oh, okay. Hasn't practiced in 6 weeks. And then he's like, and then it's always the same thing. He's like, yeah, it's really frustrating, man. And I'm like, what? He's like, I hit a bunch of great golf shots. He's like, I missed, he'll be like, I missed, 4 birdie putts inside of 6 feet. And it just makes me not want to play golf. And it's interesting his perspective. Because the thing is though, I will say, I mean, I never want to give life or credence to that. It's cause if it's a PGA Tour player or whatever, it's it's my father. The one thing I will say is my dad, when you play golf with him, he can definitely hit putts that don't touch the hole that should touch the hole, So yeah, that's a whole separate discussion. But growing up, he just had these trips. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't curious. I didn't bring it up. And, and he was doing his stuff with his friends, right? Because they had a tournament they called the Hootie. They played at Cuskul that I'll tell you that was Ryder Cup style. They have a tournament they call the Ross. So they go play a Donald Ross course. So they have 3 or 4 of these a year, we're hoping to do. And I didn't ask, and we never really did it. So then, what was your first like most memorable golf experience?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I have like a round or a day, but I think it all goes back to the course that I just mentioned, Tuscola, which it was finished in 97. So I was 5 years old. I told you before we press record, I forget the exact number. I'm positive it was top 20 golf course you could play in the United States, meaning it was either, I'm forgetting if Cusco was either just public or it was semi-private, but like you didn't need an invite. Like you could just pay and play, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember that feeling though as a kid, like not being very good at golf, not understanding it. But I think that feeling of like we'd pull in on a Friday, in the summertime, or like it doesn't even matter when. We'd get there and there's like 45 minutes of sunlight, and we help unpack the car, and my dad and I jump in the car and we drive up to the clubhouse. And because we were members and because it was like very casual, and I say remembers to be clear, my dad got the deal of a lifetime. Like the reason he joined is someone took him up there. It's in the middle of a pine tree farm, core Crenshaw design, untouched. It was $5,000 to join, and it was no monthly dues. So he's like, I don't know why I wouldn't do this. Like, right? I mean, if we had a core Crenshaw design top 20 and there was a $5,000 initiation fee, I'd pull up my checkbook right now, right?
Well, and I mean, the lack of public courses that you guys had around your area, it's almost a no-brainer. You didn't have the option to go and actually play the plethora of courses. Like,
right.
There's no need to join private courses in the Bay Area. I mean, we have some incredible private courses if you do ever want to go that route. And we both have friends that, are members of a few courses in the city, but you don't have to. I mean, with the incredible designs that we get to play just in our backyards, and book our tee times anytime we want, we don't have to do that. But I mean, that's an incredible, for the prices that I have experienced or heard of over my time, playing golf for memberships, not to have any monthly dues and $5,000 up front and that's it, is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So to your point, for me as a kid, like, even I wanted to play golf, like for me, it was all very centered on golf courses, right? Because when I was in Atlanta, there was a course around the backyard my dad gave me unlimited access to. So it's like when I think about golf, again, we might have played the same amount of golf in our life, but for me, it was largely on 2 golf courses. It was in the city. I was playing before I got to high school. I was just playing North Fulton. There was one other course called Bobby Jones that was also public. They've actually redesigned. It was basically one of those 2 because you could play one of these 2 public golf courses under the agreement, under the card, right? And then to your point, well, like we'd go up to the lake and we were members there and there was nobody there. So it was really those 2 golf courses. But to finally get around to answering your question, it was just that feeling of like there's 45 minutes of daylight. You pull in, they know your name because like you're a member there. You walk in and like my dad would just, I love that feeling now where it's like you walk in and, he's like, hey, we're going to grab a cart. We're just going to go try to get as many holes as we can. They're like, cool. Like, there's no currency exchange. There's no, you have to have this. And they're like, again, they're like, no, just go do whatever you want. And we put our bags on and we're just playing. And just that feeling of like, there's nobody on the golf course. It's like, it's core Crenshaw. There's, again, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't mean anything to me, but this natural fescue and just like, it's me and my dad and it's quiet and it's nature. And that's why I think as we talk more about kind of what we like in golf courses, that's where I know this is a very popular opinion, but that's why I have really taken such a liking as an adult to core Crenshaw, is that feeling of like a walk in the park. Like I will always choose that over like, I mean, I'm sure TPC Sawgrass is interesting, but like, I don't want that like manufactured, like, it just feels like, green grass and like, perfect lies. Like, nah, man, like the best course I ever played, Cuscagoula. It's like, yeah, if you hit a slice off the planet, you're gonna be in the fescue and you're boned, but like the fescue, like it felt like it was supposed to be there. It wasn't artificial. This next hole is just in the middle of a pine tree forest. And, and then you're hitting punch shots out. And it's like, if you got a certain angle, you can actually refine because it's a pine tree farm. So they're lined up, it's like perfect. Like I'm in the middle of the trees, but I got a perfectly straight shot. But that was fun. I mean, that's the kind of golf that I now enjoy where I'm like, man, I wish I could go back and play it because now Cuscagoula is private. But those were those formative moments to me where it's like just that unfettered access to a golf course. And to be clear, I mean, that in some ways that is public golf. That's all we love. But, I think we're going to talk out of both sides of our mouth because, you and I have had some experience where it's like, it may be unfettered access, probably too unfettered access. And on top of that, we don't have the golf course to ourselves. So I'm not trying to romanticize all public golf in that way, but that feeling of it's just you and someone meaningful on a piece of land and you just kind of get to experience that. I'm not a hunter, but I imagine that's kind of what people feel with hunting, but it's just that kind of connection to like something bringing you together in a beautiful place with someone you care about,
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's kind of the same, with my most memorable golf experiences that, growing up or just, in my life is there was this little course in like northern California, almost, I would say probably 60 to 80 miles, maybe 100 miles from the Oregon border. But it was this course. It was a Koa RV resort called Benbow Golf Course. So it was a 9-hole track built on the side of this mountain. And they had this really old hotel that was right on the river, right on the other side of the freeway. And you could actually go underneath the freeway and walk right over to the hotel and have dinner and everything. And then you could go and play in the river, and they had a beach, and it was a really cool experience. And so they would rent out all day golf passes. And give you a golf cart for your group. So you get 2 golf carts per foursome, and they just gave it to you for the whole day. And if you're staying there for multiple days, they just gave you a golf cart every morning. And so my dad, we started going there at the age of 10 or 11, and went there every year, probably for 4 years straight. And it was one of the best experiences of my life because my dad would just let me and my brother take the golf cart and go literally loop the course as many times as we possibly can in a day. And they had this great little restaurant inside that had great cold cut sandwiches that they'd make. And, me being a big hot dog guy. So one thing you'll learn throughout our podcast.
Well, I was literally about to say, I cannot believe you led with cold cut sandwiches. I've never seen you eat a cold cut sandwich.
It was, yeah. No, yeah. If I'm on the golf course, I'm going to definitely choose a hot dog over a cold cut sandwich. But
every time.
So yeah, I literally rank my courses based on hot dogs. So if a course is a 9, that usually means that 1 point out of my rating was how good their hot dog was.
So so have you played 11s then?
It still caps out as a 10, but you have to have like a 9 quality course and a 1 quality hot dog, and you get a full 10.
Okay.
But it could be the best course I've ever played, and they have a dog shit hot dog, and they're going to be a 9. Just because they're just not holding up their end of the bargain.
Well, because this is important.
9.1.
You got to explain to the people your criteria, because I'm fine with hot dogs. I'm not an aficionado. It's important to outline and just let the people know what you're talking about here.
So one thing courses do when they murder a hot dog and they destroy it is you cannot cut the casing of a hot dog, fillet it, and barbecue it or grill it open face. You ruin the hot dog. There's no snap when you bite into it. I grew up working in a hot dog stand called the Parker's Hot Dogs of Santa Cruz.
Wait, I didn't know this.
Oh, yes.
We're learning new things about each other. I'm a snowflake and you worked at a hot dog place.
I slang dogs junior and senior year of
That's
high
the new
school.
podcast name, Slangin' Dogs.
Slanging dogs, junior, senior year of high school. And so I'm a self-proclaimed hot dog aficionado. And so when I go to courses, my favorite thing on the turn is to pick up a hot dog and beer. You cannot start my back nine without a hot dog and beer. And if I'm having a bad front nine and they got a good hot dog and a good beer selection, I'm telling you right now, I'm shooting par or right close to it on the back nine. That's how much a hot dog will change my view on my round that day. So back into that, they had a great hot dog, great cold cuts. And, my dad always had his crazy cousins come out. My dad's cousins, Patty and Rick. Whew. These people, the only people that I ever visited as a child where we went into their house and they chain smoked inside their house with children present. It was the worst stench ever. So they're just super old school, loud, obnoxious, some of the funnest people you'll ever have on a golf course. I will tell you that. Horrible golfers, but amazing golf partners. And so, Benbow really, really stuck with me. It's still active. It looks like they just redid it. I looked it up a little while ago to see if it was still there. Looks like they just renovated the course. So, maybe me and the wife will have to go do a weekend trip up to Benbow Inn, stay in the hotel, and I might have to play a round or two just to get a little bit of nostalgic feel there. But that was probably my favorite, memorable moment as a kid. And I mean, that's, I think, why, I spend so much time planning these trips out for us, because experiences like that, I'm sure 90% of the people, maybe more, that listen to this podcast will never have ever heard of Benbow Golf Course. Ever. There's just no way you're coming across Benbow Golf Course. But that was a gem that my dad's crazy cousins, Patty and Rick, found. And we would go in our motorhome every year, for a week vacation with the family. And it was some of the best times of my life. It was absolutely incredible. And it wasn't a great course. It was a short track. I think it was 9 holes at, 2,400 yards. So, I mean, it wasn't long. They had one, the 8th hole was a par 3 that was, 50, 60 feet above the hole. And it was only 110 yards long. So you had to hit, even at my ripe age of 11, I had to hit a sand wedge to hit that green. And my dad basically was whipping a lob wedge and hitting half shots to try to get it onto that green because you were so high up. But it's a fun, quirky track. And it's what really got me into, doing these golf trips and kind of looking back on what makes me love, finding those true gems and going out and doing these trips with you guys. I mean, it's a track that definitely stuck with me. It wouldn't be a track that was the most memorable architecturally wise. I would say growing up, we did other golf trips that stuck with me a little bit more architecturally wise. And that was a course out in Northern California, right on the ocean, called Bodega Bay. Robert Trent Jones Jr. track. And we used to rent a house right on the 13th. I think it was the 13th hole. And it was just, some of the most memorable times. Cause I mean, first oceanfront course I ever played, first time I ever experienced a pot bunker, and trying to get out of a pot bunker, hitting three wedge shots and finally turning around and hitting it backwards. Cause it's just impossible to get out of one of those. But that course is what made me love golf course architecture. And I didn't really recognize that until I was in my late teens, going there with my parents and really, understanding the difference between that and some of the courses that I played on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. Was there a track that, other than the track your dad was a member of, was there any track that you played either in college or, you know, in your youth that really like, oh man, this is different?
Yeah, well, it's crazy. The University of Georgia golf course, because I think some listeners may know, because I mean, what is it called now? Corn Ferry. They had a nationwide event there. So I mean, that, you know, I mean, like, again, we know every course isn't great that PGA Tour guys play, right? But I mean, if you're having a Corn Ferry or nationwide tour event, it's something there, right? Like I actually remember when I think it was 2013, 2014, I can look it up. I was a sports reporter for the Red and Black, the school newspaper.
Nice.
I asked to cover the golf tournament, and Hudson Swafford won. And like, it wasn't a surprise, right? You know, they make the joke on no laying up like it was a literal home game. Like Hudson Swafford had like just graduated, you know, like it was actually his home course and he won. But I think that was actually really helpful, because I think that most tracks that stand out to us, we don't get to see professionals play on. It was definitely interesting to like watch a course that I had played and gotten absolutely punched in the face on, and then watch like, you know, Hudson Swafford play that course. So that was pretty different. Yeah, but that was just a really solid course. And also, I mean, I think that's really cool, because they do, understandably, like it's very, I mean, Athens, Georgia, for people who don't know, is a very accessible place. And that's why UGA is so special. It's got, you know, obviously UGA is there, which is a top 10 public school, you know, Georgia football. It's broken my heart.
If you guys haven't picked up yet, Ashton is a Bulldog.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
Die hard.
Yeah, I mean, they've broken my heart. I mean, most of my sports have done that, but I mean, I'll always love Georgia, and we're knocking on the door. So, but the
You
point
grew
is,
up a Braves fan, so your heart has been broken your entire life. So,
yeah, I mean,
where I got to see all the championships, being an A's, Golden State Warrior fan, you know, growing up with Niners in their backyard. So,
yeah, keep going. Keep telling me. Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Not only do we have the best courses in the Bay Area and Northern California, but we've also had championship sports teams that have kept us pretty happy.
And the best seafood and the best burritos. I mean, dude, why do you think I fucking moved here? Like, look,
why do you think the real estate is a fortune, and all of us that live here can't even afford it? So
yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it. But the UGA golf course for me, it's great course and similar idea. I remember, I'll look it up to make sure I get right on the next podcast. But one of the smartest decisions I ever did that I wish I had done a hell of a lot sooner is my spring semester at UGA, because I'd come in with AP credits. My senior year was pretty light. I think I only did 3 classes in the fall and 2 classes in the spring. People, you should graduate early. And I was like, I'm not about to leave one of the greatest places in the world early. Like, that just wasn't in the cards. But what I did that fall is they had a deal where like I had to do my PE. So I did golf, and ironically I signed up for beginner golf so I could do it with my roommates. And this is going to make me sound like a hyper douche, but I the teacher came over and I was like, hey, I'm here to support my roommates. I'm not acting like I'm great, but I have my own teacher. Like, I don't want instruction. And he goes, dude, no problem at all. He's like, I've got enough going on. And I told him, I was like, just so you know, I've joined the course for the semester. And he goes, dude, just show up, use this as your range session, and then just go play. And he's like, I don't care. Like, I'll you know, it's like, you're going to play golf. He's like, you would get extra credit. But so Big Chris, I think it was, if I remember correctly, I'll look this up. I think it was $150 to play. It was August, September, October, November, December. So 5 months on a nationwide tour course, $145, as much as I could play, when I literally had to be there 3 days a week for golf practice. So I was playing 3 to 4 times a week. And just to show you though, like how golf has been so temperamental for me, when I started playing, when I really picked up golf at the beginning of COVID, of April of this year, okay, Chris, there were handicap scores from the UGA course in 2014 on my handicap. Right now, I think my handicap goes, my most recent score, my latest score, if I look at it, is, I want to say like October. But so just to show you how like I've played golf and kind of like, I'm kind of coming out of this like, you know, like almost like hypothermia, right? Because like I said, 2014 UGA was on my handicap, where now my last score that counts is 10-26-20. And so when I picked up golf again in April of 2019, really like big time, there were still 2014 scores in the UGA course. But that's what I'd love to, at some point, I'll tell you, for our friendship and for everything, what would be dope is if we did I took you to a Georgia game, 96,000 people in Sanford Stadium, go out, party, but like we basically just go play the UGA course a couple times and go to a UGA game. That is something we should do in like 2023. We can plan it out and the world's safe again, but you would have a blast. You walk into a bar and ask for a Miller High Life, a PBR, it's $1. Like you get like a dope sandwich, $6,
Done.
And to get to see an SC football game, like take your pick, like Tennessee, Auburn, let's make it happen. And then go play the UGA course for $40.
I mean, that's the one thing we don't experience is with the Pac-12 now. We don't really experience the tailgating and the, almost 100,000 people in the stadium watching sport. I mean, I've been to University of Oregon games. I've been to Stanford games. I've been to Cal games. And from what I've heard from every person that I've ever experienced that went to school either in the South or anywhere back East, it's not even comparable. We're just too big of hippies out here. We can't get that rowdy.
Yeah. Well, we'll make that happen. That will be, MuniciPals podcast number 347, live from Athens, Georgia, where we're teeing it up and watching the dogs kick the shit out of, just pick any of them. They all suck. But yeah, that's
done. And then we'll have to make a drive out to South Carolina and play some courses out in Aiken. And
yeah, dude, 100%. Go play the tree farm, go play Aiken Country. Yeah, we can make it a little loop, make it a little long weekend. Okay, we're definitely doing that.
We're definitely so that'll be planned for 2022.
Yes, sir. Another golf trip in Big Chris's notebook.
Oh man, that notebook is full right now.
Yeah. What about you? You asked me. Do you have any courses you want to share, or do you shared? I've answered with 3 golf courses. You've had like 35, Mr. Graves.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I've definitely went through some of the tracks that I grew up on and ones that are memorable for sure.
Bimbo Bay.
But next podcast we'll be chatting about our first golf trip. So the first time that I ever got to meet Ashton in person, our buddies Christian and Jack also joined us on that golf trip. I mean, the experiences that we had on that trip in a short 4-day time frame was some of the most memorable times I've ever had. And that's why I'm so excited to go on our next golf trip, which is in, first week of March. So, excited to get that one going and excited to chat a little bit about the first one next podcast.
Yeah. And also I think this is, we probably should have done earlier in the pod, but so, obviously me and Chris are kind of doing are kind of the voices you'll hear, but a huge part of what we're doing is also our good buddy Jack, who's, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, has already just kind of blown my mind for kind of helping us with production. Cause I've done a little podcasting before and I'll be the first person to say that like the production is, I mean, me and Chris getting to sit here and kind of talk to each other about stuff we love. Like, I don't think that's hard, but we really want to give a special shout out to Jack for him kind of being in the lab and helping us make this sound good, to really help with some of this back end stuff. And I'm really excited to say that, Jack will actually be joining next week because, he was he's a big part of our podcast. He's, like we view the MuniciPals as the 3 of us, not just me and Big Chris.
Yep.
And he was a big part of that podcast. We're really excited to have him on next week to really do a deep dive because I had played a decent amount of golf with Jack before that, obviously done with Big Chris, but I think coming out of that trip without sounding super cheesy, it sounds like I'm talking about like a relationship, but like, for example, I knew that like, Jack and Christian and Big Chris, like I knew with Big Chris, I had not known him 4 days before, but I knew he was going to be like a long-term friend. And sure enough, now between the podcast and playing golf, like I see a lot more of Big Chris than I see of my parents. What'd you say?
I said, you can't get rid of me.
No, I can't, especially not. Cause also he's got me. It's like heroin. It's like, no, I'm good. It's like this new 2 ball. I can order it in lefty 34. It's got your name on it.
Hey, it's the privilege and curse of working in a golf store and building golf clubs for a living. I mean, you don't even want to. I mean, listeners will hear the amount of putters and stuff that I have in my collection. I mean, I've thinned it out.
That's number 44, you said?
It was at 44. I'm thinned down to in 20s now. But I mean, the amount of, just shafts for my one driver, I've probably got 8 shafts just for my driver that I swap through. And it's absurd, the amount of product. And I'm not the only tinker in our group. Jack, Alfred Angel also is our tinker in the group as well. So I see he's been frequenting the golf shop and having me do some work for him as well. So, yeah, I mean, we'll talk with him a little bit more about that and about the trip next week, but, man, great chatting with you today, my man.
Yeah, it's a little rainy here, but I hope that it clears up because I've taken 2 weeks off and I'm chomping at the bit.